August 15th, 2020. Northern Italy. A 20-year-old kid is tearing down one of the most dangerous descents in professional cycling. He is in the front group of Il Lombardia, one of the 5 monuments of the sport. He has been a professional cyclist for less than 2 years, and right now, he is winning. He enters a sharp left-hand bend at somewhere around 70 kilometers per hour. Something goes wrong. His front wheel clips the low stone wall of a bridge. His body clears the wall. He drops roughly 9 meters into a wooded ravine below. The people watching from the road cannot see him anymore. Just a silence where a cyclist used to be. His team director said only this: "I am glad he is still alive." Nothing else matters. He had fractured his pelvis. He had bruised his lung. He had to be flown back to Belgium lying completely flat on a stretcher because sitting upright could have shifted bone fragments into his blood vessels. His season was over. His future in the sport was genuinely uncertain. Now here's the question I want you to sit with. What if I told you that crash was not even close to the most remarkable thing about this man's body? Remco Evenepoel was born in Aalst, Belgium, in 2000. His father Patrick was a professional cyclist, but Remco had no interest in bikes. From the age of 5, he wanted football. He joined the youth academy of RSC Anderlecht, one of Belgium's biggest clubs. At 11, PSV Eindhoven came calling. He played defensive midfielder. He captained Belgium's under-15 and under-16 national sides. He was serious. He was good. And then, in 2016, the club doctor at Anderlecht ran a routine fitness assessment. Standard protocol. What came back was not standard. Remco Evenepoel, 16 years old, had the highest aerobic capacity of everyone at Anderlecht, including the entire first team. The professionals. The guys getting paid to play in European competition. That number, the maximum volume of oxygen your body can process per minute, is the single best predictor of endurance potential in sport. And this kid's engine was bigger than every professional in the building. Shortly after, Anderlecht released him following a pelvic injury in a match. Another club was ready to offer him a professional contract in 6 months. He chose to get on a bike instead. He had never finished a proper cycling race before. His first season as a junior, teammates recalled he kept crashing and getting dropped. By his 10th junior race, he took his first win. By his second year, he won both the time trial and the road race at the European Junior Championships, putting 9 minutes and 44 seconds into second place in the road race. 9 minutes and 44 seconds. That is not a win. That is a message from a different species. He repeated the double at the UCI Junior World Championships weeks later. He signed a professional contract at 17, skipping the under-23 category entirely, something virtually unheard of in modern road cycling. In his very first professional season, he became the youngest ever winner of a World Tour one-day race. He was 19 years old, and he knew exactly how good he was. Maybe too well. In those early years, the Belgian press was divided. Some called him the future of the sport. Others found him abrasive, too confident, too loud for someone who had not yet proved himself over 3 weeks in the mountains. He did not seem to care, which, depending on who you ask, was either his greatest strength or the thing that was going to get him in trouble. 2 years into his career, Evenepoel was not just good. He was frightening. He had won 4 consecutive stage races in the months before Il Lombardia. Belgian media, and even Eddy Merckx himself, were saying this kid might be the greatest cycling talent since Merckx. And then came August 15th. The Muro di Sormano descent. 70+ kilometers per hour. The stone wall. The 9-meter drop. Here is what was happening inside his body in that moment, because I want you to understand just how much violence was absorbed. The impact fractured his pelvis at the junction where the femoral head meets the acetabulum. Think of the hip socket as a cup. That cup cracked. The pelvis is not just a bone. In cycling, it is the foundation of everything. Every single watt of power generated in the legs has to pass through the pelvis before it reaches the pedals. When that structure fractures in a high-velocity crash, three things can threaten your life. Bone fragments can tear major blood vessels. They can puncture abdominal organs. And they can sever the nerve bundles that control your legs. He had all of that sitting one wrong movement away. He also had a pulmonary contusion, a bruised lung. Blunt trauma had ruptured the tiny capillaries lining his alveoli, the air sacs where oxygen transfers into your blood. Those sacs were filling with fluid. The membrane he depends on to transfer oxygen was swelling and bleeding. This is why he had to fly home completely flat. The fractured pelvis behaves like a broken ring. The moment gravity acts on the fragments, they shift. And when they shift, they bleed. But stay with me, because what happens next is the part nobody talks about.
Here is what the science discovered, and it is genuinely unsettling. The crash did not break Remco Evenepoel. It reprogrammed him. Sports medicine researchers who have studied athletes returning from serious trauma found a pattern that almost defies logic. A significant number of them do not just return to their previous level. They come back different, more self-aware, more precise, more dangerous. Not because suffering makes you stronger as a motivational slogan, but because forced stillness, the weeks on a hospital bed where you cannot train and cannot escape your own thoughts, strips away everything except the raw question of why you actually do this. Evenepoel described it exactly that way. Going from winning everything to lying immobilized was the period that forced him to confront who he actually was, both as an athlete and as a person. He returned to racing 9 months after the crash. 2 years later, he won Liège-Bastogne-Liège, the Vuelta a España, and the World Road Race Championship. All three, in the same season. The crash did not interrupt his career. It launched it. Though if you ask the people who raced against him on descents in the years that followed, they will tell you something interesting. He was never quite the same going downhill. The aggression was still there. But underneath it, for the first time, you could sense someone who knew exactly what a mountain road could take from you. Now let me give you a picture of what this man's body actually does, because this is where it gets almost unfair. He is 1.71 meters tall and weighs 61 kilograms, roughly the size of an average teenage boy. But his aerobic engine belongs to a category shared by fewer than 50 humans alive. To put that in perspective quickly, Miguel Indurain, 5 Tour de France titles, had an aerobic capacity so large that doctors initially thought something was medically wrong with him, and a resting heart rate near 28 beats per minute. He was essentially a different organism wearing a cycling kit. Evenepoel is in that conversation. Third-party analyses of his 2022 World Championship ride estimate, he was sustaining around 6.2 to 6.4 watts per kilogram in the final kilometers. That is not a cyclist. That is a biological anomaly wearing a skin suit. But here is the tension. Evenepoel is not a pure climber. Not because of fitness, but because of what happens in the third week of a grand tour when the same mountain has to be climbed 3 times in one day and the body is running on reserve. Pure climbers are diesel engines. Almost no explosive ceiling, but they burn clean forever. Evenepoel is a high-efficiency turbo, devastating on efforts between 30 minutes and 4 hours. Potentially vulnerable in the specific kind of multi-summit chaos that Pogacar uses to dismantle races. Whether he can close that gap remains genuinely unresolved. All right, I want to read you something. This is Remco Evenepoel's confirmed fracture list by the time he turned 25. Not crash reports, just the bones. Fractured pelvis, 2020. Fractured collarbone and shoulder blade, April 2024. Fractured rib, which he rode on for multiple Tour de France stages before abandoning in 2025. And in December 2024, after colliding with a postal van during training in Brussels. Fractured rib,
fractured right shoulder blade, fractured right hand, both lungs bruised, dislocated collarbone, torn ligaments. Surgery the same evening. At 25 years old, Remco Evenepoel's medical record reads less like a cyclist's and more like a Hollywood stuntman who never learned to fall properly. There is a principle in bone biology called Wolff's Law, the idea that bone remodels and becomes denser in areas of repeated stress. And it is real. After a fracture heals properly, the repaired site can be as strong as before. But multiple fractures in a short period are not a sign of a supercompensated skeleton. They tell you that loading exceeded the body's repair capacity. And cumulative soft tissue damage around joints begins to change how the body moves and how it senses itself in space. After the postal van collision, he described the following months as the hardest battle of my life so far. His first race back was Brabantse Pijl in April 2025. He won it.
Heading into the 2026 season, the question is no longer whether Evenepoel is a generational talent. That was settled years ago. The question now is whether that body, with its extraordinary engine and its growing collection of repaired fractures, can ever survive a full Tour de France against peak Pogacar and Vingegaard. Sean Kelly has said that in the right conditions, with the right route, Evenepoel can win the Tour. Others point out that against Pogacar at his best, Evenepoel would need either a heavily time trial-oriented parcours or Pogacar dealing with his own problems. That is not pessimism. That is physiology honestly applied. But here is what I keep coming back to. In 2016, a club doctor at Anderlecht ran a routine test on a 16-year-old footballer and found an aerobic engine bigger than every professional in the building. He had no framework for what he was looking at.
8 years later, that same kid had survived a 9-meter fall into a ravine, fractured essentially every major region above the hip, crashed into a postal van, had emergency surgery, raced a grand tour on a broken rib, and somewhere in all of that, won 2 Olympic gold medals on consecutive afternoons in Paris. The body that should not exist. Not because the science is wrong, but because everything the science tells us about accumulated trauma and physiological resilience says that most athletes do not survive this kind of ledger and keep performing at the summit of their sport. Remco Evenepoel does, and you would be a fool to bet against the body that keeps surviving. I want to leave you with one final thought. Eero Mäntyranta, a Finnish cross-country skier who won 7 Olympic medals in the 1960s, was later found to have a genetic mutation giving him naturally 25 to 50% more red blood cells than the average person. A built-in advantage no training program could replicate. Usain Bolt had significant physical asymmetry, one leg generating 13% more peak force than the other, and used it to become the fastest human in recorded history. What these athletes share is not perfection. It is a body that does not fit the template, performing at levels the template says are not possible. Evenepoel's anomaly is not a single mutation. It is a combination. An enormous engine in a small frame, recovery capacity that borders on the unreasonable, and a psychological profile that has turned every crash, every surgery, and every hospital ceiling into fuel. There will be a next crash. There will be another surgery. And based on everything this man has shown us, we already know what comes after. I am Sebastian from the Injury Breakdown. If this video made you think differently about what the human body can survive, the next one will make you question whether Remco Evenepoel's greatest rival is even the same kind of organism. My video on Pogacar's VO2 max, the number that genuinely terrifies physiologists, is right here. Watch it. You will not look at the Tour de France the same way again. See you there.